My Galaxy Watch 6 and Watch 6 Classic pre-orders have arrived, so now it's time to replace this guy here, take a look at what the new watches have to offer, compare them to some older Galaxy watches, and also take a look at the new features. And comment down below if you know what this watch is. So let's quickly get these out of the box so we can take a closer look. We'll start with the 47mm Watch 6 Classic, because I'm sure that's what most of you are here to see anyway. Taking that first box top off, you get another box on the inside. And this secondary box has your charging cable, and this is a 10-watt USB-C charging cable. And the other side of this box just has your quick start guide. Next, you'll see the band that you ordered with the watch. And all of Samsung's new bands come with a feature called One Click, so let's take a quick look at that. So the One Click feature is this little button here, and if you push this button, it retracts these two pins so that you can easily put the band onto the watch. So let's go ahead and take the Watch 6 Classic out so we can put the band on. But first, here's a closer look at it. The difference in bezel size compared to the previous generation, which is right here, is dramatic. So this is the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, and the bezel on this thing looks gigantic compared to the Watch 6 Classic's bezel. Because remember, the Watch 5 did not get a classic version, so there were no rotating bezels. So this is the first one we've seen in 2 years, and it definitely seems to be a big improvement. But we'll take a closer look at that in a minute. For now, let's just get the band on. So since this is a one-click band, all I have to do is push this little button in and slide the band on, and it'll click right into place. Something I did notice when pressing this button though, is that you do kind of need some sort of a fingernail to push it in deep enough to depress the pins. If I just tried to use the pad of my finger to push that button, it's not going to depress far enough to push the pins in. So if you have very small fingernails, you may find it a bit difficult to use this button mechanism. Now I'm going to get this set up in the background while we unbox the Watch 6. So this is the smaller 40mm version of the Galaxy Watch 6. Again, you'll see that there are two boxes in here. This box here has your charging cable and the quick start guide. And then you see that I have the fabric band here. So taking out the Galaxy Watch 6, you can see that this looks almost exactly the same as the Galaxy Watch 4, which looked the same as the Galaxy Watch 5. The biggest difference here is likely going to be with the screen size, so I'm going to turn this on before we do any more comparisons. But first, let's take a look at this fabric band. This is a new band that Samsung just released. So my first impression of this band is that it feels pretty cushioned, which is nice, but at the same time it feels not terribly soft. Like, it's slightly abrasive, so I don't know how comfortable this is going to be for extended use. Flipping over to the other side, you'll see that the one-click feature is also available here. And here's a closer look at those retracting pins when you push the button. The band has these 4 Velcro pieces that help the band stay on, and the band is pretty easy to adjust in size to fit your needs. When I'm first putting this on, I can tell that if I slide the band back and forth, it is a little abrasive. So I'm a bit concerned about how this is going to feel if I was working out in it, or really just sweating at all with this band on. But I'm not really going to know for sure until I test the band out for a few days, so I'll have to get back to you guys on that one. So I'm going to get this watch set up now, then we can start the comparisons. One quick note on the charging puck. While it's nice that it snaps on magnetically to the back of the watch, it doesn't look that great on a desk. So I recommend getting a stand like this one that holds the puck. There are a bunch of these available on Amazon, but I'll leave an affiliate link to this specific one in the description and pinned comment if you're interested. Alright, so now that the Galaxy Watch 6 and Watch 6 Classic are set up, let's go ahead and do a quick comparison between the previous generations. Let's start with the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic. So as you can see right away, that screen is massive. And if I compare it to something like the Gear S3 Frontier, which was the first watch that had a larger screen and that classic style bezel, you'll see that you get a significantly larger screen to body ratio in a package that is actually about the same size or even smaller than the Gear S3 Frontier. And if I flip that over to the sides, you'll see that the thickness is about the same. When comparing the Watch 6 Classic to the Gear S2, which was Samsung's first smartwatch with the rotating bezel, I noticed a few interesting things here. First, look at how thin the bezel was on Samsung's original watch that had a bezel. It's actually not too much thicker than the bezel on the Galaxy Watch 6. Even compared to the 4 watches that came after the Gear S2, the Gear S2's bezel is still notably thinner than the rest of these. Since the Gear S2 is notably smaller than my 47mm Watch 6 Classic, let's quickly compare it to the similarly sized 40mm Watch 6. And here you can see that both of these watches are basically the same size. So if you're upgrading from the Gear S2 to the smaller Watch 6 Classic, you're going to end up with a watch that's marginally larger but with a ton more features. Next up we have the original Galaxy Watch. And as I scroll the bezel, I notice that the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic has a very smooth bezel. Like, it's a really consistent feeling, and it's really easy to turn this bezel. Whereas the original Galaxy Watch is getting a bit stiff. Now, I don't know if that's because the original Galaxy Watch is now a bit older, or if it's because it just didn't have that great of a bezel compared to the Watch 6 Classic in the first place. And again, looking at the sides, you can see similar thicknesses here as well. I don't think you're gonna notice too much of a difference if you're coming from the original Galaxy Watch. One important thing to note about the original Galaxy Watch is that this had 22mm bands. So if you have a bunch of bands for your Galaxy Watch and you want to bring them over to the Galaxy Watch 6, that's not going to work because the Galaxy Watch 6 and 6 Classic, regardless of which size you get, all have a 20mm band. And this was also true for the Gear S3 Frontier. Next up, we have the Galaxy Watch 3 because there was no Galaxy Watch 2. And one of the things I notice here is that the blacks are much deeper on the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic compared to any of the previous Galaxy Watches so far. In terms of smoothness on the bezel, again, the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic does have a better feeling bezel. It's both easier to rotate and also easier to be more precise. The Galaxy Watch 3's bezel feels a bit sticky by comparison, and it's not as easy to rotate if you put your finger right on top of the bezel versus the sides of the bezel. Next, we have the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, which is Samsung's most recent Galaxy Watch that had a bezel. And the difference here is significant as well. Just that difference in screen size is dramatic, even though the body of the devices have remained pretty much the same. Something else I'm noticing is that the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic has a lot of glossy finish in a lot of different areas. Like where the numbers are, for example, is a very glossy black finish, whereas on the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, that was more of a flat black. And that continues on the side of the watches. You'll see that the buttons are a bit more glossy, and there's a gloss black color along the ridge, whereas on the Watch 4 Classic, it's just that flat color all the way around. One important thing to note is that the Watch 4 was one of the first Galaxy Watches to switch to the 20mm bands, so if you have any bands for your Galaxy Watch 4, those will still work with the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic. Next, we have the Galaxy Watch 5, and you'll notice right away that the screen is notably larger, but so is the body of the watch. So if you have the larger Galaxy Watch 5 and that's feeling a bit too big for you, you may want to look into the smaller version of the Watch 6 Classic if you want to get the classic version. Flipping over to the sides, you'll see that the Watch 5 has a pretty basic design on the sides, whereas the Watch 6 Classic adds that ridge for a better aesthetic. Next, we've got the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, which is Samsung's most expensive smartwatch. And that's because this has a massive battery, it's made out of titanium, and has extra GPS-related features that you won't find on the Watch 6 Classic, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But right away, you definitely notice a larger screen on the Watch 6 Classic in a very similar body size. If I flip over to the side, you can see that the Watch 5 Pro is a bit thicker than the Watch 6 Classic, and that's thanks to the larger battery. And one more note on the battery life between these two devices. Since the Watch 5 Pro has that larger battery, you are going to get about double the battery life on the Watch 5 Pro versus the Watch 6 Classic. So if you have a Watch 5 Pro and that battery life is important to you, you may not want to get the Watch 6. And just for actual numbers, the Watch 6 has an estimated battery life of 40 hours, while the Watch 5 Pro has an estimated battery life of 80 hours. Now, personally, I get over 2 days of battery life if I have the always-on display enabled on my Watch 5 Pro, and I'll get almost exactly 3 days of battery life if I turn the always-on display off. So if I were to cut that in half on the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic, I would expect about a day and a half of battery life with the always-on display enabled, and maybe 2 days of battery life with the always-on display disabled. But I'll let you know what the real-world battery life is on the Watch 6 Classic in a future video once I've had a chance to test it out. For the regular Galaxy Watch 6, I'm just going to compare it to a couple of these other smartwatches because I only have one that's the same size. So this here is the smaller Galaxy Watch 4. And this is the same size as the smaller Galaxy Watch 5. So whether you have a Galaxy Watch 4 or a Galaxy Watch 5, the size comparison is going to be the same. So you'll notice right away that the screen is noticeably larger on the Watch 6 in the same form factor. And that does help the Galaxy Watch 6 look like a much more modern smartwatch. And I want to do one more size comparison between the 40mm Galaxy Watch 6 and the 47mm Galaxy Watch 6 Classic. And specifically, I want you guys to see the difference in screen size. So if you wanted to get the larger version of the regular Galaxy Watch 6, not the classic version, you'll get a screen that's the same size as this classic version in a slightly smaller body. Conversely, if you wanted to get the smaller Galaxy Watch 6 so you can keep this bezel, you'll have a screen size that's the same as this smaller Galaxy Watch 6, but a slightly larger body to accommodate the bezel. And if you're happy with the size of your larger Galaxy Watch 5 and you're not sure which Galaxy Watch 6 to get, the smaller Galaxy Watch 6 has a screen size that's almost the same as the larger Galaxy Watch 5. So if the larger Watch 5 felt a bit too big for you, you could definitely get the smaller Galaxy Watch 6 and be happy with the screen size. Oh, and in case you're wondering, this is just the D-buckle that goes with my Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. I just took it off so I could show you guys the watch a little bit easier. And that magnetic buckle just works like this, which is super easy to get the watch on and off. So if you do have the option to get this buckle, I do recommend it. Now let's talk about the sensor differences. If you're coming from a Galaxy Watch 5, there won't be any difference in the sensors outside of the fact that the temperature sensor is moved over slightly. But functionally, all the sensors are the same. If you're coming from a Galaxy Watch 4 or Watch 4 Classic, you'll get the addition of the new temperature sensor, which is currently only used for menstrual cycle tracking. If you're coming from a Galaxy Watch 3, you'll get the temperature sensor as well as body composition sensors, so you can take body composition measurements and see things like your skeletal muscle, fat mass, body water, body fat percentage, and BMI. If you're coming from the first Galaxy Watch, you'll get all of the previously mentioned sensors, plus a blood oxygen sensor to measure your oxygen saturation. If you're coming from the Gear S3, you'll get all of the previously mentioned sensors, plus the ability to take stress level measurements, as well as get built-in sleep tracking. And if you're coming from the Gear S2, you'll get all of the previously mentioned sensors, plus the ability to continuously measure your heart rate instead of just once every 10 minutes. And if you're coming from this beast, well, basically everything is new. One more important detail that I almost forgot to mention is that the Galaxy Watch 4 and older do not have sapphire crystal glass like the Galaxy Watch 6 and Galaxy Watch 5 do. And this just makes the Watch 5 and 6 more scratch resistant. In terms of size on the wrist, this 47mm Watch 6 Classic does look like a pretty good size for my wrist. And for reference, the circumference of my wrist is 6 3/4 inches, or about 17 centimeters. And the distance across my wrist from here to here is 2 1/4 inches, or about 6 centimeters. So if you have a similarly sized wrist, this is how big it'll be on you. And here's the size of the 40mm Watch 6. And if you want to see how big these watches are on my wrist compared to other watches, boom, here you go. And let me know in the comments if side-by-sides like this are helpful for you guys. Taking a look at some new features on the Galaxy Watch 6, we get a significant boost in brightness, but you're not going to notice that indoors. And that's because the max brightness only comes into effect under direct sunlight. As you can see right here, both watches are set to their max brightness, and you can barely tell the difference. In person, you can see a slight difference, but you're probably not going to see it on camera. So let's take these outside to see if there's any notable difference. With this outside shot in direct sunlight, it is immediately obvious that the Watch 6 Classic in the middle is notably brighter than the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro on the left and the Galaxy Watch 4 on the right. But both the Watch 5 Pro and Watch 4 are still plenty readable. And since the regular Galaxy Watch 6 has the exact same screen as the Watch 6 Classic, you can expect the same results with that watch. Switching to the always-on display shows a dramatic difference. The Watch 6 Classic is easily twice as bright as the Watch 5 Pro, and the Watch 4 is barely visible at all. And what you're seeing here is true to life. So while the Watch 6 Classic's always-on display isn't perfectly readable in direct sunlight, it's at least readable, which can't be said about any previous Galaxy Watch. Also keep in mind that this is the worst case outdoor brightness. 90% of the time, the always-on display on the Watch 6 or Watch 6 Classic will be very easy to see. Another brand new feature on the Galaxy Watch 6 is activated when you go into sleep mode. If you have continuous heart rate monitoring enabled, when you go into sleep mode, it'll switch from using the green LED to an infrared LED that you can't see. So right now I'm in sleep mode, and if I go back to my watch face, you'll see that my heart rate is actively being tracked. And if I bring the watch up to the camera, you'll see that you can't see any LEDs. But if I turn off sleep mode, then bring the watch back up, you'll now see the green LED blinking. So this is a great feature to make sure that green LED doesn't shine in your face while you're sleeping if you accidentally move your watch around in your sleep. Now let's compare the Watch 6 Classic to the Watch 5 Pro to see what else is new and different. Besides the obvious of the rotating bezel, which we already talked about, if you scroll all the way to the end of your tiles, then go to add a new tile, you'll see that you have a new interface. So on older Galaxy watches, you had to just swipe across from left to right to see all of your different tiles. Now you swipe up or down, and they're split up into categories based on which application they come from. In terms of new tiles, we now have a timer tile, and if you tap one of those, it'll start a timer for that amount of time. Or you can tap this plus option here to create a custom timer. And when you create a timer, then go back to the watch face. If you swipe back over to that widget, you won't see any active timer information here. You will still have to tap the timer icon at the bottom to jump back and see the timer. If you long press this widget, you can edit it and change what you want for timers. And this allows you to pick a different time, even recent custom timers that you set up. The next new tile is a battery tile, which tells you how much battery you have left on your connected devices. But tapping this tile doesn't do anything, and if you long press the tile, there's nothing to edit either. The next new tile is a forecast tile that gives you the forecast for the next few days. But you do still have access to the basic weather tile that was previously available. And unfortunately, you are still limited to 1 tile per tile type. What this means is I can only run up to 4 of my SmartThings scenes. If I were able to create more of these tiles, I'd be able to run as many scenes as I'd want and just swipe across between the tiles to control the different scenes. This would also be helpful for the exercise tile if you have more than 3 workouts that you typically do. And I think this is a limitation to Wear OS specifically, so hopefully Google adds that feature in a future update. The good news with these new tiles is that they're likely going to come to the older Galaxy Watches as well in a future update. One tile that's missing on the Galaxy Watch 6 compared to the Watch 5 Pro specifically is the route tile. And what this does is allow you to load your own custom GPX file so you can use your GPS to lead you down a specific workout route, even if that workout route has you run 3 different circles. Loading GPX files is something that's just not possible with the Galaxy Watch 6. So if that's a feature you use often on your Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, you might want to skip getting the Galaxy Watch 6. But also keep in mind that the Watch 5 Pro is a pro-level watch that's still being sold alongside the Galaxy Watch 6. And that's because the Watch 5 Pro still offers those unique features like the GPX file support, as well as the significantly longer battery life. Speaking of exclusive fitness features on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, another exclusive feature that you don't get with the Galaxy Watch 6 is a feature called Track Back. This feature can be accessed when you're using GPS tracking while doing something like a hiking exercise. All you have to do is swipe to the left, then tap Settings, and on the Watch 5 Pro, you'll see this Track Back option. And what this will do is allow you to go back the exact same way you came, which while you're hiking could be pretty useful. This feature is simply not available on the Galaxy Watch 6. That said, all other GPS tracking features will be available on the Galaxy Watch 6. So bottom line, if you frequently use the trackback feature, the GPX files, or you love that super long battery life on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, then you may not want to get the Galaxy Watch 6. But if the battery life isn't a big concern for you, you never use GPX files, and you don't really care for the trackback feature, then the Watch 6 Classic will be an excellent watch to get. If we pull down the quick toggles, we'll see another difference, and it's just that the Galaxy Watch 6 keeps the background slightly visible, whereas older Galaxy Watches just had a black background. So if I swiped across to my tiles and pulled the quick toggles down again, you'd see my timer circles still somewhat visible in the background on the Galaxy Watch 6, and just a black background on my Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. In terms of which quick toggles are available, they're the same on both devices. The only difference is that since this is the LTE version of the smartwatch, I will have this mobile data quick toggle. And the only reason that's not on my Watch 5 Pro is that I didn't buy the LTE version of the Watch 5 Pro. The apps also appear to be the same on both devices. And if I go ahead and open up the Samsung Health Monitor app, you'll see that I only have the option for an ECG on both watches. So while the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro as well as the Galaxy Watch 6 are capable of blood pressure monitoring, it's going to be quite a while until that feature gets approved by the FDA in America, so I wouldn't buy either of these just for that feature, unless you don't mind waiting a few years to use the feature. One new feature related to the Samsung Health Monitor app on the Galaxy Watch 6 is the ability to get notified when it detects an irregular heart rhythm. Previously, this was only possible when actively taking an ECG, which requires you to have your finger on the side key. The Galaxy Watch 6 will be able to check for atrial fibrillation in the background. And if it detects atrial fibrillation, even when you're sleeping, you'll get a notification telling you to take an ECG to verify the results. And fortunately, this feature is even coming to the Galaxy Watch 4 and Galaxy Watch 5 in a future update. Jumping into the Samsung Health app, we do see some slight differences. For starters, the daily activity is now stacked instead of across horizontally, though I do think horizontally made more sense because you could fit more information on the screen at a time, but for whatever reason they decided to change it. Scrolling further down, you now have a dedicated workout button to jump straight into a workout. Previously, you'd have to tap View History, then tap Choose Workout. This page also looks slightly different now, with black animations on green dots instead of white animations on green dots, and the animations are slightly different as well. If you tap the settings gear, you get a few new options with the Galaxy Watch 6. If I scroll down a bit here, you'll see that I now have this workout start option. So by default, there's usually just a 3-second countdown, but you can switch this to manual, and what this does is allow you to wait to start the workout until maybe you get GPS tracking, or if you're still getting set up for the workout and you don't want it to start right away. And the Watch 6 also brings a separate screen always on feature here. So on older Galaxy Watches, if you wanted your always on display to stay on when you were working out, you'd have to pull down your notification shade and enable it here. On the Galaxy Watch 6, you could have your always on display disabled, but have the workout screen stay on. And at the bottom, you have auto detect workouts. If you tap this, and I'll enable it on both of them. If I scroll down, you have walking or running. So previously, you had to enable both walking and running at the same time, but now you can enable just walking and running separately. The Watch 6 can also detect cycling now, whereas that was not an option before. Elliptical training remains the same on both, as does rowing machine, swimming, and dynamic workout. And in case you're wondering, dynamic workout is for if it detects that you're working out, but it can't figure out exactly what you're doing, it'll put it into the dynamic workout category. If you scroll to the end of your workouts and tap the plus icon, you get some new options on the Galaxy Watch 6. On older Galaxy Watches, you just get a massive list of all of your workouts that you could scroll through to try to find the one that you want. The Galaxy Watch 6 gives you a few options here. If I tap select exercise, it takes me to that same list that I could then scroll through just like on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. But at the top of that page, there's also a categories option now, and if you tap that, you can select a specific category, and that'll narrow your results down so you don't have to scroll as much. If I back out of this again and scroll down a bit, you can see that I can create a new exercise right from the watch. So if I tap this, I can change the name of the workout, and if I scroll further down, I can enable recording distance, speed, and the route with the GPS. Now, it is still possible to create these workouts with older Galaxy Watches as well. The only difference is that you have to do it from the Samsung Health app on your phone. So it's nice to see that Samsung's giving us the ability to do that right from the watch now. While we're talking about the exercises, I have to mention Track Run, which is a brand new exercise for the Galaxy Watch 6. And this allows you to track your run around a 400-meter track. And that sounds kind of cool at first, but if I tap the settings here, this thing gets crazy. For starters, you can select which specific lane you're in for better tracking. You can also set a target based on either duration, total distance, calories, even intervals. And if I tap this, I can set the first interval to be either a distance or a time, give myself a recovery time and change that amount of time. And I can also use a recovery distance as well. I can add a second type of workout, and the second workout could maybe be a longer distance, and then select the number of sets. And below the intervals, I can select to pause when my target is reached. Scrolling further down, I can select it to automatically count laps every mile, which would technically be every 4 laps. But if I wanted it to count every single lap, I could just tap this and change the distance to a 1/4 mile. And if I scroll down a bit further, I even get the option to double press the back button to start a new lap instead. So yeah, bottom line, Track Run is incredible if you're someone who runs on a track frequently. Backing out to the Samsung Health app, if we scroll down a bit further, you see that you also now get this sleep coaching option, which wasn't available before. And the sleep coaching is pretty advanced, so I'll cover that in a separate video. But basically, it just gives you a bunch of actionable items to help get better sleep. Now let's take a look at the new watch faces we get. Those are the same for both the Galaxy Watch 6 and Watch 6 Classic. So I'll show you guys that with the regular Watch 6 compared to the Galaxy Watch 5. And again, this is the larger version of the Galaxy Watch 5. So I'm gonna long press both. And the first screen you get is the same for both of them. You can see all your recent watch faces. And if I tap Add Watch Face at the end, you'll see that this interface is a bit different. So previously, you'd have to just scroll across to find your favorite watch faces. And you could see a bar at the top that shows you how far along you are to get to the rest of your watch faces. On the new interface, you just swipe up, and they're split into different categories. So to quickly run through the new ones, you get a new Silly Faces watch face, and if you tap them, it changes to a different silly face. And there's a bunch of different options here, and these cycle through randomly. All of the informative ones are the same. Daily activity number is a new one. It's very similar to this heart one that fills up, but it's actually just the numbers from the time that are filling up, which is a pretty neat way to do it. You also get a brand new sleep coaching watch face, which will give you advice throughout the day to help you improve your sleep. And last but not least, we have 2 classic options, one called Perpetual and one called Stretch Time. The rest of the watch faces are the same as before. The perpetual watch face looks super cool and tells you the time, day, day of the week, and month. And the stars even twinkle on it. And if you customize this one, you could change the background from basic stars to a constellation instead. And you can change the indexes to be the full month names or just abbreviations. You can also change the color, the hand style, the hand color, and even the second hand color. Stretched time is the default watch face on the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic specifically, and if I turn my wrist, you can see that the background kind of shifts back and forth. And in case you're wondering, this watch face is fully customizable too, with everything from style to color, and you can even add complications. And there are a lot of complications to choose from. And the animation even changes depending on the clock style. So if I go back and forth, you'll see that I get this little wave pattern. But if I tilt it back and forth, you won't see any more shimmering on it. Jumping into the settings, we'll find another difference between the Galaxy Watch 6 and Galaxy Watch 5. If you scroll down and find advanced features on both devices, then scroll down a bit and go to customize keys on the Galaxy Watch 5 or customize buttons on the Galaxy Watch 6, then select to customize one of those buttons. You'll see that the first two are the same, but if I scroll down a bit, you'll see that on the Galaxy Watch 6, I can select my exercises. So now if I double press the home button, it'll take me straight to all of my exercises. On older Galaxy Watches, the best you could do is go to the Samsung Health application. So if I double press the home button here, it'll take me into my Samsung Health application, where I would then have to scroll down, tap View Exercise, then tap Choose Workout, and I'd finally be able to get to that screen. Now let's do a speed test between the devices. I have the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic on the left and the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro on the right. We're going to make sure there are no apps open in the background, so let's go ahead and close all of those. Then we're going to go ahead and open up the Samsung Health application. So that was actually faster on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. Calendar. Well, that looked to be a little bit faster on the Watch 5 Pro as well. Now let's try the Google Play Store. That was considerably faster on the Watch 6 Classic. Samsung Health Monitor. A little bit faster on the Watch 6 Classic. Reminders. Faster on the Watch 5 Pro again. And we'll finish up with the settings. And that was also a stitch faster on the Watch 5 Pro. Now let's jump over to our tiles and start the same workout. So it looks to be about the same speed here. And getting back into the workout screen is again about the same. Comparing the Galaxy Watch 6 to the Galaxy Watch 4, we get similar results where sometimes the Watch 4 is actually faster than the Watch 6. Now let's go all the way back to the Galaxy Watch 3 and see if that makes a difference. Let's go ahead and start with the Samsung Health application. So that is noticeably faster on the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic. Let's test the calendar. That's about the same, maybe a little bit faster on the Watch 6 Classic. Settings, again, about the same. Alarms, yep, notably faster on the Watch 6 Classic. Now let's start the same workout. Wow, actually a little bit faster on the Galaxy Watch 3. So after running a speed test on these, it's pretty clear that anything from the Galaxy Watch 3 and older will be a notable upgrade in terms of performance. But anything from the Galaxy Watch 4 or newer won't see too much of an improvement jumping to the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic or Galaxy Watch 6. Now let's talk about some of the differences between the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic and the regular Galaxy Watch 6. Besides the obvious difference of the rotating bezel on the Watch 6 Classic versus the digital bezel on the regular Galaxy Watch 6, the Watch 6 Classic has a body that's made out of stainless steel for a bit more durability, and the regular Watch 6 has a body that's made out of aluminum. And you'll also notice that the Watch 6 Classic has a more detailed design with this ridge right here. And in case you're wondering, on the Watch 6 Classic, there is no digital bezel, there is only the physical bezel. The only other difference between these is found in the settings, then the general tab, and here you see that you can turn the touch bezel off on the regular Galaxy Watch 6. Since the Watch 6 Classic has this mechanical bezel, you won't be able to disable that. And since my Watch 6 Classic is the LTE version, if you jump into connections and scroll to the bottom, you'll see that the Watch 6 Classic also gets this mobile networks and data usage option here. However, if you got the LTE version of the regular Galaxy Watch 6, you would also get this menu. Besides those differences, the software on both of these watches is identical. So I had a chance to test out this fabric band a bit more, and I even wore it overnight to do some sleep tracking. And after some extended use, I can say that it's not quite as uncomfortable as my initial impressions. It is still abrasive when I slide it back and forth, but it doesn't slide back and forth too often. And I still don't think it'd be very comfortable if you were sweating in this, so I certainly wouldn't wear this to work out. I also asked my wife what she thought about this band, and she actually loves the band. She thinks it's very comfortable and even prefers it over the silicone watch bands. She says it feels super lightweight compared to the silicone band, and she likes that it's infinitely adjustable instead of just being locked into these holes. Her only concern is the Velcro catching on sweaters in the winter, but she did notice that the Velcro strips are pretty small and are kind of recessed into the edges of the band, so she says as long as the band sits flush and not slightly off to the side, she says she probably won't have an issue with sweaters either. So bottom line, while this band isn't my favorite, my wife loves it and she'll be taking it from me. While we're talking about the bands, let me also give you a closer look at the Extreme Sport Band. The first thing I want to point out is that this buckle piece is locked together, so it makes it a lot easier to get it into the holes. And once it's locked in place, you have this second hole here, and the tongue of the watch band just slides in like that. And the purpose to all these holes is to keep your wrist cool while you're working out. And in terms of comfort, I think this band is excellent. Now time for some rapid fire Q&A from the community page on my channel. A bunch of guys asked about the battery life, and unfortunately I won't be able to answer that question until I've been able to use these watches for at least a couple weeks. But for reference, Samsung says the Watch 6 should have similar battery life to the Galaxy Watch 4. And my Watch 4 Classic can run for 1 day and 13 hours with the always-on display enabled and continuous heart rate and stress tracking on as well. If I turn off the always-on display, I get about 1 day and 22 hours of battery life on this watch. So it's likely that the Watch 6 will land in a similar range. But I'll let you guys know for sure once I've had time to test it out. Someone else asked if they make cases for the Watch 6 Classic. And while Samsung doesn't make their own case for it, you can get plenty of third-party cases that have decent reviews. Those cases will do a good job of protecting the watch and still give you access to the bezel. And I'll leave an affiliate link to a few different options in the description if you're interested. That said, I've never personally used a case or screen protector on any of my watches, and they've all held up great. So I'm honestly not sure if you're really going to need it. Now for the big question, should you upgrade? I'd say that if you're coming from a Galaxy Watch 3 or older, it is absolutely worth the upgrade, and right now you can get a big discount on the Galaxy Watch 6 and Watch 6 Classic, and I'll give you some more details on that discount in a minute. If you're coming from a Galaxy Watch 4 or 5, you won't see an improvement in battery life or performance, but you will get a better screen-to-body ratio, a dramatically brighter screen in direct sunlight, and earlier access to all the new features that I showed you. And specific to the Galaxy Watch 4, the Watch 6 adds that temperature sensor for menstrual cycle tracking if that's important to you. If you're coming from a Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, you'll be substantially reducing your battery life, as well as losing some fitness tracking features in exchange for a brighter screen and the rotating bezel. And it's up to you if that's worth the trade. But regardless of which watch you're coming from, for just a couple more days, you can get up to $300 off a Galaxy Watch 6 with my exclusive affiliate link in the description and pinned comment. That link will give you my exclusive $50 discount, plus up to $250 extra off if you trade in your existing smartwatch. And if you're thinking about buying the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro instead, you can check out my 1-year review of it by clicking this video here. Or if you want to see dozens more Galaxy Watch features, you can check out this video instead. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss my deep dive coverage of the Watch 6 and Watch 6 Classic. What, you thought this was my deep dive? We are just getting started. God bless, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.